Hello, Sir Chris and Ma'am Marivic. Salamat po uli sa oras na binigay ninyo dito sa ating extension ng ating forum webinar kasi very overwhelming yung natanggap nating response sa ating mga viewers from the different Facebook pages. So ito po, yung mga tanong, we summarized them and then we've come up with a short list of questions we'll ask you and please answer po. Okay, the first question po is, how early can you apply the DLP strategy? Can it start with kinder or pre-kinder? And are there schools implementing in the college level and even postgraduate?
Kinder to college.
To graduate school.
Nice. How about the challenged learners, like those who cannot write or cannot read or are not independent learners yet? Will DLP still work for them?
It's the best option for them as far as you are concerned. Because reading is association of symbol with concept idea, and that is enhanced in the DLP.
Thank you. What are the roles of the teachers in DLP?
Assessment. It's in the assessment of the learning activity sheets.
Unless they are asked by the principal to prepare their own learning activity sheets. But they also have the option to make use of DLP activity sheets which we will be providing for the DLP.ph website this month.
How about the parents? What are their roles?
They have to make sure that their children are doing the learning activities at home. They have to provide the structure and time management for the students. And make sure that they don't give household chores to be done during school time. So the students have to focus on their work.
Ito po, isang question. Teachers are asking how to grade the students in a home learning setup. How does this work with DLP?
In the DLP, every day, the students will be writing the LAS. So after 1 week, they would have compiled a lot of written work. And this is what the teacher will assess at the end of the week.
And then it depends on DepEd whether they would require a quarterly assessment, summative assessment, or in view of the quarantine conditions, perhaps we could only have mid-year and end-of-year assessment. That could be, depending on the DepEd again, and on the school administrators, it could be multiple choice type, for which the answers could be broadcasted or printed.
Thank you. This is one of the most interesting questions. It says that the goal of DLP is to develop independent learners. Is this really the natural state of learners, to be independent?
You should observe very young children. Well, at least in the many advanced countries. Unless they are forcibly or because of the conditions at home, you have somebody else to help you. But normally, children would say, "Me do it. I'd like to do I'd like to dress myself, or I'd like to eat myself." But if they get used to being spoon-fed, that is the culture that they absorb. But if you look at them naturally, "Me do it," especially teenagers.
Maria Montessori realized that, even for young children, independence.
I want to comment. Ang galing, yung mga bata, they want to do it themselves. Ayaw nilang pakialam.
Inaalis pa nila yung kamay ng parents.
Correct. How is socialization achieved in DLP?
What do you mean socialization?
The social interaction skills, peer collaboration, peer tutoring, discussions. Now, in the DLP, before the COVID, it was more like in the classroom. They discussed because the classroom is not teacher-dominated. But during COVID and post-COVID, perhaps, you could do it via technology, phone calls, group chat, messenger, and so on.
This one was discussed lengthily a while ago, but I'd like to ask it again. Is there anything you'd like to add in terms of the roles of the local governments, the principal, teachers, parents, and students in implementing DLP? Maybe we can focus on the local governments.
For the local government, we were thinking they could assist in the distribution of printed learning activity sheets, the blank sheets. With the special education fund, they could allocate for the acquisition of and distribution of roughly 1 ring per child for all the subjects for 1 whole year. So maybe half could be printed activity sheets with the RISO, at least the learning with the label, learning activities, target, title, and so on, and then half would be blank sheets. And then they could, if they have extra funds, because here there would be no textbooks required. So if they have extra funds, they could use this to give the school bag or knapsack with the folders, with the activity sheets, with other school supplies like ruler, pencils, colored pens, and ball pen, very basic school supplies. If they could provide that for every child in their own barangays or puro. And it should be attractive enough that the children will be really excited to start the school year and do it.
Thank you for that. Implementing DLP in the new normal requires, children, parents to be in their homes studying. So how can parents ensure that their children are not distracted while studying at home?
The writing of the activities is the one that will enhance the focus and attention of students. If they were just to watch televised lectures or be online, look at the lectures on YouTube, then they would probably be distracted. But it's the writing that pings them the focus of the student.
Yeah, thank you. We go back to the school. Does DLP require training of teachers?
Probably in the preparation of learning activity sheets, if the school would like to have their own learning activity sheets done by their teachers, then some training, online training, or just simply watching the videos on the Smart Channel, DLP.ph Facebook page, then they could have some training on the preparation of learning activity sheets.
It's minimal. I mean, they're trained as teachers.
Okay. If DLP is implemented in schools or at homes, can the students ask their parents, guardians, classmates for help in accomplishing the activity sheets?
Definitely.
They may, but eventually, because the students will be the ones to be tested, it would be to their advantage if they try to accomplish the activity on their own. Anyway, they'll be writing it on their own, but they can ask, they can discuss, they can call their classmates, they can message on Facebook and discuss some problems or some exercises.
So the safety net is really the handwriting, in their own handwriting of the LAS. After gathering all the information, they still have to write.
Ito po, how can DLP work for learners who have different levels of intelligence, since the students are given the same activity sheets to work on?
If you're a religious person, which I assume David is, remember the Our Father. Children can relate to Our Father who art in heaven. But at the same time, a theologian like Saint Teresa of Avila can write one thick volume just on the Our Father. So the idea is, when you have a learning activity which is well designed for a child, even the experts can get insights from that, higher grade levels. So develop a concept, an important concept such as, let's say in physics, the concept of being able to describe the motion of an object. You can present it at grade 7 level, at grade 8, grade 9, grade 10, or
all the way
to graduate school, because you still take up kinematics. So it's in the design of the activity. So sometimes there are students who take a long time to answer an activity sheet. Some students take only 5 minutes. But we ask them, would you like to do an advanced activity? They would say no, because they would like to meditate. Use the extra time for meditating on that simple activity from which they can draw insights.
How can DLP be implemented for schools whose learners are living in mountainous barangays where they don't have gadgets or signal or data connection?
I think that has been done by SMART.
School in a bag.
School in a bag, and the alternative learning system of the Department of Education and SMART has partnered with them for that. They have done that for the past several years.
Okay, ma'am. Here's a question. Can we use the public school competencies as reference in implementing DLP?
Definitely. We ascribe to we subscribe to the DepEd learning competencies. I mean, we have to follow the guidelines of DepEd, the prescription, the prescribed curriculum of DepEd. What we do is that the key problem there is how do you interpret or translate the learning competencies in such a way, or split the learning competencies in such a way that the students will not have intellectual indigestion.
This one is more specific in ALS, Alternative Learning System secondary level. How can DLP become effective in teaching mathematics?
Oh, very effective. To learn math, it's learning by doing. You cannot learn math just by listening. You have to do it. And the hallmark of the dynamic learning program is learning by doing, independent learning, doing the problems by yourself. That's the hallmark of DLP. So it's the best way for learning math.
So we do the DLP for math all the way to senior high school, general mathematics, probability and statistics, pre-calculus, calculus, it's all that's DLP style. You can do that from kinder all the way to graduate school.
Wow. Do you still use textbooks?
You may use them as references, but they're not required. So this is a low-cost program. They don't need textbooks.
And teachers who are preparing the learning activity should look at the web, internet, for a vast array of topics.
This is another interesting question. Bakit mas madaling pabasahin ng mga bata at gawin ng mga activity sheets kesa paintindi sa kanila ang mga lecture ng teachers?
Well, the moment the child starts writing, that child is already questioning, analyzing the line that he or she wrote. But when a teacher is lecturing and the child is looking at the teacher, you're not really sure whether the child is thinking about food or the movie that he or she saw yesterday. So when the exam time comes, the teacher will say, oh, they did not understand. That's because they were physically present but mentally absent. But in the DLP, when you write, you better think about what you're writing. That's the difference.
Thank you. Kindly elaborate on the evaluation aspects, grades, summative assessment side, from portfolios, avoiding cheating, intellectual dishonesty issues.
Well, we have to, again, in our school, we follow the DepEd. They have guidelines on assessment of learner outcomes. So, written tasks, summative assessments like long exams, quizzes, portfolio assessment. Now, that's pre-COVID. We're waiting for the guidelines for this COVID scenario and post-COVID. What we're saying is we should not be bound by what we have been doing before the COVID. If written tasks or the recitation in class is part of the grade, then definitely you can do without it during this COVID scenario. So there would be some adjustments. But portfolio assessment will be there. You could have summative assessment, long distance. It could be online for those with gadgets. It could be printed for those without. So we would be streamlining the assessment protocols.
Can you elaborate on the effects of DLP in promoting good or in promoting the values of children?
Well, learning by doing, independent learning, that's a very important value. As Mr. Montes Berto mentioned, that's the best gift that you can give to a child. Learning how to learn, especially in this age wherein there's a smorgasbord of ideas in the net, in the web. So DLP teaches the child critical thinking because there's a lot of fake news out there. So being trained in critical thinking and learning by doing is collaboration. It's the best preparation for a 21st century scenario.
But at the same time,
yes, ma'am.
Sorry. At the same time, there's a subject required by the DepEd, Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, which means you really learn values as a subject. And with the DLP, not just listening to a teacher, but really writing down your experiences, your reflections, your insights, then the absorption of values learning would be more.
Well, one thing also important, especially in a society, is the concept of accountability. Here in the DLP, student is accountable for his learning because he has to write all these activities. So if he or she does not do that, then his grades would be affected.
There's a question here. If students are just beginners, meaning they don't know how to read yet, can DLP be used?
Yes, say for kindergarten, then they draw a lot. They put shapes and figures, colors, and letters, and very, very simple words. And then all the way to grade 1, grade 2, so they try to associate meaning. Although by grade 1, majority of the children would be able to read at least some basic words. So you could start with that. Now for those with learning disabilities, then a more graduated approach can also be done with the DLP. So you can, in one period, that the grade 1's pupil would just be busy tracing letter A and looking at words with the letter A and so on.
Can DLP be implemented in technical vocational learning?
Definitely. There's a school in Cebu, the Center for Industrial Technical Enterprise, or CITE, and that's a technical school, and they have been applying the DLP since 2013, and they got good results. And up to now, you can check their website. Just type CITE Cebu and it will come out.
People have reservations about implementing the DLP because they say it's just writing. But technical vocational schools would require a lot of hands-on. But as we always emphasize, laboratory, workshop, work, they all need some theoretical background also, pre-lab, pre-workshop preparation, and so on. So if they absorb that well, then the hands-on will also be much better. So Site Cebu has reported a lot of improvement with their learning.
Ito po, I think, magkapatid yung question just to stress the point. On electrical installation and maintenance, may mga topics na kailangan ng hands-on activities. Paano ito i-address ng DLP?
Well, yeah. It's the same. Even in these technical courses, there is still a theory part. So we even apply DLP in physical education. Why? Because even playing basketball, or there are rules to the game, there are sign languages which they can do using the learning activity sheets. There's also always a theoretical part to anything that you would like to learn.
And then pre-COVID, teacher intervention, that's when the hands-on would take place normally. Yung for electrical installation, wiring, house wiring, they simulate, and then they do some measurements and so on. But during the COVID scenario, when there are still quarantine conditions in place, then you could postpone that, because definitely electrical installations and studying electrical appliances and measuring instruments would require supervision from a teacher. That could be postponed.
For electrical installations, for example, you still have to know how to calculate the total resistance if the resistance is in parallel or in series. That's all theoretical, and you can do that via the LAS.
So during the COVID quarantine conditions, you could do the analytical part, the theoretical part. The hands-on will be up.
Do you have tips in implementing DLP in advanced or undergraduate graduate courses in physics?
Oh yes, well, they could look at the Learning Physics as One Nation portfolio, because that has an overlap with college level physics, say for pre-med students, and although LPON is not calculus based, our activities now for senior high school, because of the guidelines of DepEd, is already calculus based. So there's a difference. For those going into the engineering courses, then they would need the calculus-based physics. But for pre-med, their courses, pharmacy, what else? BS Pharmacy and other courses, they can look at the LPON, the exercises, the activities there on optics, mirrors, lenses. That is also taken up in college physics.
It's still the same philosophy. Any complex thing can be divided into 10 simple steps.
So I teach master's and PhD students, for example, I have taught in UP, but I have taught now also at the University of San Carlos. I have adapted the DLP approach, which means they do a lot of computations also, and not just listening to me lecture and they just take notes. No, they calculate step by step.
Sir Chris, Mama Rivic, thank you again. You might have a message for your viewers for day one.
Thank you, Dave. Chris,
Well, first I would like to thank you, Dave. You did a good job.
And we would like to thank SMART, of course, those who are working behind the scenes and also with us on stage. And all those, the viewers on Facebook, those who participated through their questions. Thank you for the support. We're hoping that with all the energy and time spent by our sponsors, by the parents, by the Department of Education, I think we should be able to come up with a good plan. I mean, everybody's really working so hard. The Department of Education, its principals, its teachers, and then the sponsors here. We're all doing our share. We just hope that this would assure parents and students and pupils that we'll be able to achieve high learning outcomes, even with the quarantine conditions.
Yeah, thank you, Sir Chris and Mama Rivic. Alam nyo, talagang inclusive education ang pinupush ng dynamic learning program because, I always share to a lot of people yung sinabi ni Mama Rivic, Sir Chris, kahit anong talino mo, kahit anong galing mo, pero kung ang ugali mo, ikitungo sa ibang tao, sa bayan ay hindi maayos, paliwala lang. So, yun nga, tama yung sinabi ni Sir Chris kanina na really, aside from, pushing the intelligence of the child, dapat importante yung values sa gobyerno. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga nanood. See you tomorrow.